Hello, my name is Anders, and I was just talking to my team, trying to get them rallied. We're making maybe 100,000 a day in affiliate marketing, passive income, leveraged through AI and crypto, and you can too, if you just follow my advice. And the number one secret I was just telling everyone about here really is that I watch Thorin's YouTube channel. You should too.
If you'd like to support my channel and get 10% off some delicious gamer subs, this is some cherry limesicle flavour, use my code Thorin, Thorin, at gamersubs.gg on anything on the site and get 10% off your order. Also, as I always point out, check out my pinned tweet on x.com/Twitter. There's a bunch of predictions, previews, trivia, anecdotes. It's mainly been League as of the posting of this video, but there's going to be a whole bunch of CS coming up soon, obviously with Blaster on the corner. Now, degster is a player who's never won a trophy. He's never been a HLTV top 20 player. Yet, in my opinion, he is one of the best pure talents to come through in many years of professional Counter-Strike. People know I don't tend to pick just random up-and-comers and then overhype them. I pick the people I think are bona fide, slam dunk, they're going to be the greats. And so I've had a pretty good track record. Simple, Nico, Device, Elige. I've been on pretty much on point with a lot of these big names. Now, there's the occasional ones don't always make it through, but I often don't always double down so hard on them. The Yikindars, for example. So one of the things I think that is crazy about this player is I can't believe his name almost disappeared from the collective unconscious of Counter-Strike. In this last year or so, where he didn't play CS2 and he'd been benched from OG for ages, the amount of teams, including, by the way, teams that needed Russian players and AWPers at that people weren't even mentioning this guy. They were going, oh, him, isn't he toxic? No, he's washed, or there's the all-around. It suggests to me people don't have an eye test. I mean, what's bonkers about this player is, one, the stats are amazing. Two, if you look at the context of the teams he's playing in, the performances are amazing. And three, just go watch some POVs of the guy or watch some big LAN matches and you'll see he's got an incredibly impressive style of play. The eye test just checks out all day long. So I'm putting him in that category of the all-time, the Hall of Famers, the people who obviously have won trophies in HLD, top 20, etc. By the way, I actually think at least 1 year he should have been HLD, maybe even 2. Which is he had a bad team and they never could get decent enough placings, and placings are what get you on that list, no matter what people tell you, even though it's presented as an individual player list. So this guy's career journey is part of the reason why, unfortunately, you don't hear a lot of hype around him, and he isn't in the conversation with Monacy, the best player in the world right now, wonderful major champion, Shiro on Spirit, dominating the world, Ziwu, Device. You go down the list, Tosh on Mouse. There's a reason why he hasn't had a charmed career like them. This is the guy where he had a bit of hype online in the online era towards the end of 2020, around the time that Yikindar and VP were going off and people were starting to hear about Gambit youngsters coming into early 2021. That was when he was in Espada. If people don't know, later on in Future Star Alliance, he played with Patsy. By the way, interesting detail, who was the coach of that team? It was actually Overdrive. He apparently scouted this player. So he was someone people already saw online, was farming noobs in tier 2 and putting up crazy numbers. And obviously he's an AWPer, so people are like, oh my goodness, is this another simple type situation? Because remember, Monacy wasn't going to come around till a year later. He's in the We Play Academy Navi squad, wasn't he? So he wasn't a guy who's playing the big lands or even the big tier 1 tournaments. Then after that, so for me, by the way, in CIS hype, it sort of went like, I know Yikindar is from fucking Latvia, so he's not actually CIS in that guard. But if you think about that area of teams, because he was obviously playing on Russian-speaking teams, it sort of went, the hype was Yikindar into like degster from Espada, and then the Gambit youngsters players, Shiro, Axel, as you later saw, became mega, obviously, that particular year. And then later, you got Monacy and all these other players, wonderful, that'll all come since. Then, when the lands came back, he actually was really good in Spirit initially, but most people are going to know the big shock result was in 2022, when the PGL Antwerp major came, the second major in the post-online era. Spirit, out of nowhere, made a crazy run all the way to the semis and gave FaZe a pretty good series there. And if they'd have won that, I'm telling you, I actually think they could have won that major. I know they would have played Na'Vi in the finals, so it would have been tough, but actually this guy matched up well against Na'Vi. I think it would have been a really interesting series. Him and Patsy were looking real nice in that particular tournament. Then He had his OG period. He went abroad. Now, again, that in itself's weird. Why is he leaving a Russian-speaking team? And first of all, I bet they got paid absolutely fuck all in Spirit. Like, that sounds to me, by the way, like not even necessarily high 4 digits, if I had to guess, for their salary. And obviously, like, you probably have to give a decent chunk of prize money to the team, and you're not in all the tournaments. You don't have all the blast spot and the Louvre. So it wasn't a great situation. So I'm not too surprised he took the OG offer. That's still probably a bump up in pay. And then you think, I'm going to get more fame. And also, he can speak some English, so I can go and be the AWP, and then hopefully it's a better team. Just those were pretty ass OG lineups. Those were some of the biggest wastes of time ever. And quite frankly, most of the time they didn't have proper in-game leaders. So I don't know how it was ever supposed to work. So for me, the OG period really cooled off the hype around this player. And then unfortunately, I'm just going to say it, I don't think people have the eye test that I do. Now, notice I was kind there and said that I do. It's not that you don't have an eye test at all. I've watched every great player in Counter-Strike, minus some of the Source players. And I've watched every big tournament, minus the Source one. So I've been watching CS for over 23 years, 24 years now, or something absurd like that. So as a result, I've seen all the greats. So my eye test in this game, especially Counter-Strike, is incredibly attuned. And I'm telling you, this guy checked out from day one to now. And so the story goes, well, it's because he was toxic or too demanding, both in terms of like his team, his teammates, maybe salary, conditions on the team. And so don't worry, I'll circle back on that later. Now, he did literally, by the way, as I'll get to, beat Navi in the best of 3 at that blast right after the Antwerp major, where they had some Die Young come in and replace Bubich, and eventually they won that tournament. So the team they lost to was his OG, and then they had another 3-mapper against him in the semis. Then he had the whole thing where he was like self-bench from OG as well. So people, and the rumour was from all those little piece of shit merchants out there, oh, he had an offer from Cloud9, but he turned it down because he didn't give him enough salary. I asked Degster, and all I'll tell you is he said that's not true. That's not what happened. Now he's returned in CS2 with Heroic. Not that long ago, he played the Bet Boom Datsha tournament, if you saw it, where it'd been months and months and months and months since he'd played in official, I mean, about a year or something at that point in time. And then obviously he hadn't played in CS2, just wasn't a CS2 player because he'd been from right back in CSGO. He was waiting for a chance, presumably, to get somewhere elsewhere, right? So you look at this guy's HLTV page. Let's look at some stats, and you'll already start to see how utterly cracked out this player is. So what we'll do is we'll just leave it at just LAN, all the filters off, and we'll just start. So obviously, way back in the day, you go down, he's playing in this, like, IM 2021. Remember, that was the first LAN after the online period came back. But if you remember, it was a studio LAN. Even though it says Cologne, there was no access, there was no playoffs for the big stage. Everyone was playing, as far as I know, in like hotel rooms, basically. And you were just playing out the LAN. But this is the one where famously, like, if you remember, FaZe and Astralis made the semis because Glaive and Carrigan just did like a masterclass of calling, even though that was when Carrigan didn't actually have ROPS yet. And obviously, Glaive didn't have, at that point in time, device. He was off in NIP. So at this tournament, you'll see here, it goes 13th to 16th. Not that great, is it? But let's just start looking at the scores. Because remember, he's on shit teams, so he's not going to have many good placings. So what you do instead is you go to here. Like, let's go over here. So we go to like a first proper LAN, basically, with the team. We're in Spirit. In the play-in, he mega carried. Look at these numbers, by the way, over 7 maps. Then in the main event, where he comes 13th to 16th, that's tied for last place in the main event, by the way. Look at the fucking numbers. Like, these are numbers, by the way, that like the best player in the world would put up. This is like peak simple numbers. Then, right after that, he goes to a major, right? So he's off into the major. They're in the challenger stage. Actually didn't do that well there. First major didn't do that well. Spoiler, he's about to become a legendary major player. Then you go, you're at PGL Antwerp. Notice there's not many lands between this, by the way, because he's on Spirit. They're not qualifying. They don't have partner slots. So then you go straight to the next major, and he qualifies. Pretty good performance in the qualifier, right? Look at the deaths, look at the kills. Then he goes into the Challenger Swiss system, mega carries. Then in the main event itself, where he got all the way to the semis, he's really good. Not as good, but still really good, considering this is like your first playoffs of a major. This is very legit stuff. Then you go, then after that, he had the blast I just referred to earlier. He was mega at this one. Not as insane as down here, but still really good. Look at these are very good numbers across the board. Then you have later in the year, Blast Fall groups, because obviously OG was a team that was in the Blast system. He has insane numbers. Really crazy numbers. These kills per round are That's my king stat, and he is a fucking king of AWPing for getting kills. He's one of the best in the world. By the way, this is a guy who gets way more kills per round than like a Frozen, for example. But the difference is the stat plays to Frozen, and he's been in a very different role in teams as a rifler. And so you'll think Frozen's way better. This guy is fucking unbelievably good. Then we go on. You have this ESL Challenger event where admittedly he didn't do that well. Okay, not that great. Then we have, at the end of the year, the RMR for IEM Rio, another major. Does all right, just all right. Not that, actually, you know what? For a player of his caliber, not that good. Kind of an underperformance, but you can still see not exactly that terrible, is it, for an underperformance? Then you go, luckily you make it to the major. At the major itself, in the Swiss system, you giga carry, but the team doesn't even get out the Swiss system. You're carrying all the time, but your team's just not good enough. Could you even name 2 other players on that OG lab, and were they good? Exactly. Then you go up here, we're at Blast again. Blast fall final. I mean, this is pretty good. Not amazing, but it's not bad. Again, very high kills. Then Blast World Final. Admittedly, one series was against Heroic that had config instead of, I think, Stown, right? Stown had that thing with his brother. He actually carries pretty hard there. Does very well considering the team. And they make the semis. So it's not even a bad performance. Then, last year, you have Blast Spring Groups. Again, just carrying over loads of maps, but it's OG, so they're shit, so that doesn't even matter. Then you go to IM Katowice. He does badly in the plane. In the main event, he's good. Not insane, but good. They come 9th to 12th. They're actually one series, one map even for making the playoffs. Then you have ESL Pro League. He's carrying. Not his best, but a carry. Not that great, but still not terrible when you look at the deaths in terms of how he played at the European RMR for Blast Paris. They get to qualify there as OG. IEM Rio before, not to be confused with the major the year before. Actually, he's carrying here. He's doing pretty well. Again, he had them in position against Vitality, who won that event. Like, I think they upset them in a BO1, and he had them in a best of 3. He had him in position again to potentially make an upset run. Then you go to the major in the Challenger stage, Swiss system. We haven't heard this before. He giga carries, but his team can't get out, and so it's irrelevant. And then after that, that's the end of CS2 for this guy. Then he came back not that long ago. Bet Pugnatio, his first event back. Remember, that was a tournament with like a bunch of good teams, even if it's a smaller event. 10 maps played. These are really good numbers for someone who hasn't played CS2. And he's been out of the game for like, what, a year? These are bonkers numbers. Now, yeah, after that, he went to Yellow Compass. He didn't do very well. He had a bad performance. But again, bad for him, remember, is like 1.00 and just that type of stat line. So this guy is so cracked. And then let me just show you before I go and show you some more actual matches. Let's just click majors, shall we? Because I'm getting simple vibes from this guy. Watch this. Remember I said he wasn't good at his first major? Then his next major, 1.44 rating, 0.87 kills per round over 5 maps. Monster. Then, that's at the Swiss system. Then in the rest of the tournament, bonkers numbers. Then you go to that one. Look at these fucking numbers, boys. It's not an enormous sample size, but it's a pretty good one at majors. And look at the numbers. This guy is a fucking special player. I mean, I pointed out earlier, he had obviously those interesting runs, right? So there's the PGL Antwerp one, where they came in. They were in the first Swiss. Looks like they only lost to G2. Beat Astralis. This was 2022, so it's not like it was a crazy Astralis lineup. Let's have a look what that lineup looked like. This was still with config and blame F. No device. They're Farley at that point in time. Goes to the next Swiss system. In this Swiss system, they win 3-0. They beat Furia, Heroic, and Copenhagen Flames. Now, no one cares about Copenhagen Flames, but these two are 2 of the best teams in the world at the time. Furia, obviously, famously don't ever get it done, but these are quality teams. You go to the playoffs. They played Fury again in the opener. A lot of people actually were like, oh, Fury is good. Clapped them 2-0. Then in the semis, they play FaZe. Look how close this is. The first map is almost as close as you can get. The second one's an overtime giga game on Dust 2. And let's just quickly check the stats for this one, shall we? Not insane. But I'll tell you what, first time ever in the playoffs of a major. Like, this isn't bad stuff. He's in this game. He's doing work. Then after that, he had that blast that I referenced after this tournament, where his team gets top 4. Look at OG's lineup when they get top 4. Flames, pretty good player. Next set is IGL, not a particularly good IGL. Neofrag never made it at this level. He was just a good players and sinners. Fiku, not bad. That's it. And then Rugger's their coach. Like, this isn't insane. You got Flames, but that's about it. And this is young Flames still. So then you go look. In your group, by the way, you shouldn't be getting out of this group. Like on paper, Big wasn't even bad at this point in time. Navi's one of the best teams in the world. They've almost just won this major, although this is where they just chased some die young. And Ents, if you remember, this is when they made that semi-final run with Spinks, and it wasn't that long after that, a few months later, that obviously Vitality came and poached/bought Spinks, didn't they? So in the opener, you win that one. Then you win the decide. You win your group, by the way. So you go straight to the semis, but then you lose closely to Na'Vi, and they end up winning the whole tournament. Then after that, at the end of the Blast World final, this is the one again where you had Config instead of Stown on Heroic, and Outsiders got to play because they won the major. That should actually be called Virtus Pro at this point in time, but we all know the bullshit with Carmack and ESL. So you go down, you win your group again. Look at your group, by the way. Team Vitality, one of the best teams in the world. Heroic, one of the best teams in the world, even just won the Blast previous to this. Na'Vi, one of the better teams in the world, who's always a playoff team. And OG, right? If there's any team shouldn't be getting out of this group where 3 teams make it out, it's obviously fucking OG, and they win the group. They beat 2-1 Heroic, admittedly that was the one with Config, but then they beat Vitality 2-0. Vitality, who's won Pro League a few months before this. They go to the playoffs, they get bounced in actually not insanely dominant fashion by Liquid, who made it all the way to the final. That was when Liquid were on that Yekindar heater after the Cologne run and all the other ones, etc. Obviously, Blast in general, they'd been pretty good at. So you can see from those performances, he's been the only reason his team's had these way over performance placings. But then let's go and look at some individual games of this guy and you'll see how bonkers he is. I'm not even picking just the crazy. I'm picking out some classic ones though, because I've tried to pick him against top level elite competition to play against, not just anyone out there in the scene. So we'll start off at that IM Clone. Remember I said he came like, I think he was like 13th to 16th. Let's go back and check that again. We'll just double check where he was on that tournament. So I am Clone, like basically his first proper LAN in Spirit. Last place in the main event. So in the plane, he plays Vitality with Ziwu. And this is the one where Vitality wins 2-1 in the upper bracket of the plane, right? Let's just go down. La, 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 la. Degster plus 27 over the series. By the way, he had more kills than Ziwu, more plus minus than Ziwu. Ziwu had higher ADR. Now let's look at the maps. Map 1, just all right. Map 2, he goes plus 19 with 34 kills. Look at Ziwu's numbers. And by the way, Mirage, mega map for Ziwu. So what a monster way to announce yourself to the world. Then we go elsewhere in the same tournament. In the actual tournament itself, in the upper bracket, he plays against Heroic. This is when Heroic, remembers, one of the better teams. They won the Pro League. They were one of the better squads. Obviously, at their major not long after this, they make it to the semis and could have made the final. This was when they had like the lineup with... refreshing the lineup. This isn't like it's the one with like Borup and all that crap. So you go to this particular performance, right? First things first, you've already seen it, haven't you? He loses this series, 2-1. Go down. Plus 37 for the series. 88 kills over 3 maps. This guy is cracked out of his mind. First map was quiet. Still plus 8, because that's how cracked my dude is. Second map, Nuke. Yeah, that's a plus 14 that he's dropping on the head of Heroic, who was a good Nuke team. And then the last map is going to be Ancient. Oh, what's that? 38 kills plus 15, 94 ADR. This is one of his first LANs, guys. Oh, it doesn't stop there. At the same LAN, his team then got eliminated in the lower bracket by FaZe, who ends up going top 4 at the tournament, right? So let's just go down. Let's just have a look, shall we? Remember, this is FaZe without Rops. They had Olofmeister, but they still have Brokey, Rain, Twists. Twist goes plus 20. What's that? Degster goes plus 27 over 3 maps. Now, let's just go to the best map, the first one, Overpass, which you'll see. His team, it's the only map they won. It was a close series. He goes plus 17, 89 ADR, 28 kills. Outperforms everyone, statistically. So after that, we'll go to that Blast where they make the semi-finals. We're 1 map from the final. In the opener against the new Na'Vi line with some Die Young, I actually famously made a bet on this game actually and won it, believe it or not, because I bet against the fact that like OG had the upset factor with Degster and I knew Na'Vi had a new lineup and Blade System isn't going to instantly bring players on and be elite. So you see, Simple even doesn't play very well in this one. Degster over the series, yeah, it's not that crazy, right? This is on H because I'm on the 3rd map here. But watch this. Compared to everyone else, though, like at LAN against Na'Vi, monster team. Yeah, Simple shits to bed. Yeah, guess what? You're an AWP, and this is the AWP. Look at him, 23 kills, plus 5. Not in bonkers, but pretty good. Then in the other match, the one that you win to win the group against Ents, this is when Ents was good. They'd just come off the major semi. Plus 20. Let's go to the first map. Plus 14, 89 ADR, 27 kills. Hades is nowhere close. Then in the actual, it's just the same match. That's the same one, I think. Then in the semis of this tournament, they lose 2-1. But degster's +9 for the series. Now, admittedly, Simple goes ham, Electronic goes ham. The one you want to watch here, it's an obvious one, it's Inferno, actually. Notice how the maps are changing too. It's not just like a one-map wonder or something. On this map, he goes 26 kills, +10, and 81 ADR. Now, admittedly, Simple, so Simple's still in the game with him, but this is the kind of thing. Look at his fucking team, then look at Navi's team. Simple, Electronic, and Bit. When Bit was still decent, by the way. Like, these results shouldn't be happening. Also, wouldn't any other player, including an AWP, have an excuse on a bad team? Like, no, it's way harder. You don't have, like, the setup, the flashes, the system doesn't work for you, you don't have a great IGL, your coach doesn't anti-strat that well, and you play the best players in the world. This guy doesn't give a fuck. As you'll find out later, he delivers no matter what. It's not about his teammates. That's how pure a talent this guy is, and what a great mentality he has. Like, he must have an iron mental fortitude that he doesn't somehow get down or play badly, and he still goes for the shot, still positions aggressively, and hits them. Then we're going to go to this one. At the RMR for IM Rio, he played against Outsiders. They're the team that wins that major. And he beats them 2-1. Let's go down. +10 for the series. Remember, Jim got to be the MVP of this. That was on the map you want to see there. So, sorry, for the series, he's -2. But on the second map, dust2, which in this case was the key win for OG, he goes +10, 109 ADR and 22 kills. Jim, by the way, who gets called the whole game around himself, and we're on dust too. I'm happy he likes. 14 kills, -3, 56 ADR. Then we'll go to the Blast World Final. This is where they actually beat Vitality, one of the best teams in the world. And one of the reasons why is this guy goes +15. And on Mirage, the second map, great Ziwu map, remember? Ziwu's not bad. Yeah, he's pretty good. But this is degster, bro. 24 and 13, +11, 88 ADR and a 1.50 rating. Then we can go to Katowice last year. One of the big events, right? I told you they weren't that far from making it through. Beats Mouse Sports. Now, Mouse, this is when they had degster still, but they were already starting to become like a dark horse team, a team that should be in all the playoffs. People expected more already, like more semis, some finals. Maybe you could even have fluked a trophy. Obviously, they almost did later at IM Dallas this year. So you go and look here. Over the series, he's +18 with 77 kills. Most kills, most +- most ADR for the whole series. But then let's just go and look at some of the actual maps, because the key one for me is this decider. In the decider on Mirage, everyone knows with Frozen and Mouse in general, they love Mirage. Always been really good on it. This is when they still had Frozen. Watch this stat line. He goes 41 kills in an overtime game, 24 deaths for a +17, 94.3 ADR, absolutely tools Torji, and is basically a god. And if you watch that game, he has to win rounds with a fucking Tech 9, with an AK. Sometimes he just doesn't have AWP on T side except for a few rounds, but he's just a monster. This is one of the best teams in the world, guys. Yeah, it's in a group stage because he doesn't get many chances to play in playoffs. Then how about this one at IEM Rio? Not the major. This is the tournament afterwards. This is where they lost to Cloud9. By the way, Cloud9, I think, made the final of this tournament. Cloud9 was a top team. Or maybe it was the semis. I think it was the semis where they lost to Vitality when Dupree did that crazy vertigo or whatever. Obviously, Cloud9 had just lost, I think it was ESL Pro League to FaZe at this point where FaZe won the Grand Slam. You go and look. So he loses this series, but it's 16-14s both time. Go look at his performance. +14 on their first map, Mirage. 91, by the way, Cloud9 was a good Mirage team. 28 kills, 14 deaths, +14, 91 ADR. Now, Shiro does awesome too, but I tell you what, Shiro positions very differently, is set up very differently, he gets to play way more passively, and gets the AWP constantly, because he's in Cloud9, a better team that frags better. So, again, just goes toe-to-toe with the best players and the best play. Now, here's a recent performance. When he came back, this is at Yala Compass, so we're not even now choosing one of the tournaments he did well at. It was Bet Boom he did well at. The team didn't do well here, and they lost this map against Ents. Now, it wasn't a great Ents. This is when some of those players aren't great. But I just thought I'd show you how he does against a modern team when he's come back. So on Dust 2, he goes 22 kills, 11 deaths, +11, and 108 ADR, and a lost game, a 1.63 rating. The guy's just fucking cracked, guys. He's just really good. So I'll just address some of the criticisms. So the first criticism goes, Spirit didn't want him, right? Obvious thing to say there is, since they don't have loads of money, at least back then, before they were able to buy the Shiros of the world, years after the fact, I assume from some of the staking money, how is that an indictment? Yeah, Spirit didn't want him. You know what? They didn't want Wonderful either. They let him go to fucking Sprout. By the way, Wonderful just won a major. It's now going to be like a top 10, at least a top 15 player at the end of the year on HLTV. And here's the thing. I don't think Wonderful then or now is as good as degster at his peak. So if they didn't want degster and they didn't want Wonderful, Bro, at this point, I'm starting to ask what's wrong with them. Yeah, it's worked out way after the fact now with Shiro, but I don't know about that. Degster is better than Wonderful. The player they then had after Wonderful was Artfrost, obviously. He's better than Artfrost. Is he better than Shiro? I'd say it's close. They're very different styles of AWP, and quite frankly, he's never had the kind of level of teammates that Shiro has, in my opinion, in Cloud9 and even this team spirit. He's never had a Donk or an Axile to play with. He's never had as great an IGL as, I guess he did have Chopper for a while. But put it this way, I'd rather have Nafani than Nexa as an IGL. Say what you like about Nafani. He could frag within his system. He could get Axile going. Shiro seemed comfortable with it. I actually think that angle was sort of overplayed a little bit. On OG, he's just an AWP, bro. What do you want him to do? 1v9 the game. Who's his in-game leader? I've told you it was Nexa and who else? Exactly. Who else did he have there that were great teammates? He had Flames, young Flames, and he mega carried them as an irrelevant team. Including at majors, by the way, where they almost made like second Swiss systems and potentially could have even been like a playoff team at some of these tier 1 events. In terms of the idea he's toxic, I can't tell you about Spirit because I don't speak Russian. I don't have deep connections with that particular team. But I'll tell you what, until they got Shiro, they've never had anyone on his level with the AWP, so does it even fucking matter? Oh, I can also see why they might want Wonderful instead of him. Wonderful, I think, has the opposite problem. If this guy's more simple with being a bit toxic and demanding, then Wonderful's more Ziwu way. He's a bit unassuming and a little bit too unselfish, in my opinion. So I can see why they might have wanted Wonderful, because he might have just done what they said and had less of an ego. But I'll tell you what, they weren't as good and they were nowhere close to semis and majors. In OG, I can just tell you, they say it is nonsense that he is toxic. They say that he just doesn't have insane English, and it's more like he just has strong opinions and maybe he's not always great at communicating. But they said he's not toxic at all. They said that's not the case at all. And teammates, by the way, told me they liked him and think he's really sick, and they agree with me. The eye test just checks out. And I'm talking about the good teammates and the bad. So I don't know where I assume it has to have come out of the Russian scene. Maybe it was even spread by Spirit because it looks silly that you've let one of your best ever players go. Cloud9, like I said before, people claim, yes, Finn, he denies it. And I've never seen it credibly claimed anywhere else, by the way, by like a journalist I rely on. Then the whole thing of like, is he too selfish and demanding? He's the fucking AWPer, and he's a true star AWPer. A player like that should say, give me my gun, give me my spot, get out of my way, or help me with a flashbang, or have someone come in behind me, or give me a timing, because he's the best player to get you a kill on this team. So I don't know what people are talking about there. Spoiler, it's worked awesome with some of the big ego AWPers when they're good enough, for fuck's sake. Not just simple in CSGO. You want to go back to 1.6 with people like Delpan in SK Gaming, or Markelov in Navi, or Kogu in Kogu in MIBI used to at one point be the IGL, call around himself, and just super bait, but still get loads of kills and still be a god. And everyone knew, the other teams used to have the rep of like, if Kogu dies, you've won the round and the game. And he could still play like that. How selfish is that? But I tell you what, he was so good and his teammates were not on his level that I don't even mind that at the latter point in his career. So if there was ever a role where you could be selfish and demanding, if indeed he is that, it would be this. Like I've alluded to before, I actually think people like Ziwu, Wonderful, Shiro, Toshi, I actually think they don't play selfishly enough. They don't have enough of an ego, know how good they actually are and how good they can be. What I've always loved about Simple and now Monacy's game is these guys know that they're the best in their team, in the server, in the world. And so they not only have the agency, they take it and they make use of it. They don't wait for the game to come to them and conveniently take the right shot. They force the game the way they want it to be. And that's why when they're the best players, their teams always have a crazy knockout puncher's chance to win the game. In terms of skills, by the way, this guy's AWP. He feels like he never misses the easy shots and the sitters. He's got a really aesthetically pleasing firing style. I would just say, go type in Degster POV and watch some of the games with a good scoreline. It's so pleasing. He's got that style where he doesn't do the crazy flick and look away. He doesn't do the really slow, like Device-esque one. He does something in the middle. Like, what's great is when this guy shoots, he doesn't clip the edge like a lot of the flicky players do. He puts it straight into the center of the guy's chest/stomach on the model, straight in the center of the model, perfect to miss as rarely as possible, and he hits, and that's why he's one of the most guaranteed, like, lock on. He will hit the AWP shots that aren't impossible to hit. Also, he does have a flick shot. It's just not as fast as Monacy and Simple. Probably no one's is. I mean, funnily enough, actually, Shiro's got a pretty fast one. It's just his style and positioning doesn't make it as obvious and doesn't show as many crazy rounds. He has a really reliable flick shot that he can do the simple sort of like, I flicked off, oh, I got the kill in the obituary. The kill was almost off screen because it was so quick, but he isn't as fast as them. It's just his style is more to make sure it hits. And I'll tell you what, he's not getting out-AWP'd and quickly out-reflexed, as it were, unless potentially he plays against Simple or Monty. And by the way, he had some pretty good games against fucking Simple. Interestingly enough, as an AWP, he double scopes a lot and is quite consistent with it and is able to manage that. A lot of people, if you notice with the AWP, use the single scope and just move forwards a little bit so that when you have to then scope out, it's not as hard. And if you miss this shot, it's a bit easy to rescope. This guy doesn't care because he knows he's going to hit the shots. And if you see how he positions, he takes aggressive spots and he takes his spots confidently, and he clearly knows how good he is because he can back up that arrogance/confidence in his game. The eye test for this guy, it's unbelievable. It's one of the most slam dunk eye test talents I've seen in CSGO. Like, when I think of people I saw, and immediately it was just obvious they were cracked. Simple, Nico, Fur. This guy's in that category. Then, I'll just say this. He is a very good AWPer. He's not just a good AWPer or an AWPer, he's a very good AWPer. Like, I actually think in CSGO, in terms of talent, he never had the career and the deep runs to justify this, but in terms of talent and the eye test, I think he's a top 5 talent I saw in CSGO with the AWP. And if he can reach his peak CSGO form in CS2, I think only Monacy and Zewu will be better than him. And actually, the way Zewu plays at the moment, I don't even know necessarily if he would have as much impact as a prime degster could have. So already I know people are going to be wiling because of that, because you haven't got the eye test to go off, so you'll just have to see, won't you? In terms of the attitude also, like, he's got an attitude and an ego. He carries no matter what. Think about even players I've taught. Every time Zewu plays badly, everyone cries about his teammates who are all HLTV top 20 stars around him, etc., except what Mezzi in fucking Apex at this point. All Apex was when he was a fucking entry, wasn't he? So everyone cries about these players. Oh, it's not their fault. Oh, how can you expect them to play this way? I can't believe Muncie's playing so awesome in G2 despite all this. This guy's in bomb-ass OG lineups. This guy's playing with nobodies. This guy walks back into CS2 after all that time off and just, all right, give me the go. Oh, I'm hitting AWP shots again already. It's so insane. Like, what the attitude you're complaining about, I think, is what's going to make him a killer. Now, the problem he has is he doesn't have the experience compared to any of those names I just listed. Yeah, he had a major semi, but he hasn't had many playoff runs even. He hasn't had many major playoff runs. He hasn't ever basically been in a position to win a tier 1 trophy, except maybe that one Antwerp one. So as a result, you have to do it. You have to show the fuller career. But if you look at what he has done and the games he has played and the majors he's played, this guy is fucking unbelievably good. And I think his destiny is to be one of the all-time great players. So I hope now, I think this heroic lineup is really well put together and GM'd. I hope this is actually his chance to be one of the best players, because think about heroic now. He's a really good AWPer and going to get really HLTV top 20 level. I think he can be a top 10 player in the world. Not necessarily for this year, but when he gets rolling. You've got Nertz, who, by the way, can be like a top 5 player or top 10 player himself in the world. He's a star aggressive rifler. You could already see them being a top 5 duo as stars in CS2. He's got great role players in Shush and Tesses who know what their job is. He's got a good up-and-coming IGL in Kixon, who maybe isn't quite as good as Shuhi, but he's clearly good. His coach is Saw, who made all those different Ents lineups work. Remember, he had Hades and Sun Pius. I think Degster at his prime is better than Sun Pius. I just think he is, even though Sun Pius has been mega and had more chances to show you in the big games in the playoffs. One day, this guy will either play for a FaZe clan and win everything there, or I think he will one day play for one of the elite Russian teams. Whether that's a return to Spirit, whether that's him in Cloud9 one day, whether that's him in Virtus Pro if James steps out the way and gives him the spot, because he's just too good not to. It would be an actual tragedy if this guy doesn't have an amazing career and go down individually, at least, as one of the all-time greats. Everyone needs a support network, and mine is, of course, my Patreon community, the Scrominati, who in many ways, they're the Sonny to my Cher, saying, I got you, babe. So this video and all the others on my channel were kindly supported by the following names: Ahmed Hadjou, Mac Pugnatio Rajcula, Adam Tomlin, Animosity, Jensen Goh, Tosh, Toucan, and you know it. Jerky's Minion, my main man, always going to be referenced, one of the best patrons of all time. Would you like to ask a question in my AMA? Maybe you want to suggest a topic or a guest to say on my channel? Do you want teasers? Find out who the upcoming Reflections and Talk to Thorin interviews are. Maybe you want to do one of those long discussions where you get to set the topics we talk about. Well, if any of these or others appeal to you, put your money where your mouth is. Join the Scluminati today via the Patreon link in the description box below.